Hi, y'all. So, this section of Race Matter focuses on a variety of stories and texts from educators about their experience in addressing the topic of race with students, schools, and the community. Don't Say Nothing by Jamala Pitts was the first article I read and learned about the importance of speaking out for your students. It made me reflect on how you're always being watched as an educator and how you respond to something or don't respond to something becomes a model for students. An educator holds a special power of representing or challenging social perceptions, and students learn whether everyone in the community acts the same way or if there are people with open minds. Having taught at an elementary and secondary level, I can agree that students are always watching your actions and how you react to social situations. Pitts discusses steps for educators to reflect on their own biases and begin conversations with students in regards to current events. I agree that being transparent with students and letting them see that you're also learning is vital for their own development. They see a model of someone willing to educate themselves about current issues and how they can become a resource to address injustices in the community. What stood out to me was the quote on page 96. It hurts students when teachers acknowledge only what Black people have done for this country and not what this country has done to them. Reflecting on my own educational trajectory, I was never taught about the effects of historical policies and events towards the community of color. It wasn't until my ethnic studies teacher in my senior year of high school where I was able to get a glimpse of these effects in my local area. My teacher wanted us to see Sacramento for what it was, what it has done to the communities all around, reflect on our own communities, really question why we are offered some opportunities and denied others, why we continue to have statues and institutions named after colonizers, why some areas of the community have been run down while others are now flourishing, and what is happening to our neighbors. The purpose presented of letting students speak and ask questions, letting them be quote unquote in front of what they are feeling rather than reacting to it, also spoke to me because those have been the times where, as a student, I have felt seen. The second section I read was How One Elementary School Sparked a Citywide Movement to Make Black Student Lives Matter by Wayne All and Jesse Hagopian, and their telling of how they formed a social movement for students of color to be heard, what progress this movement created, and the community it formed. I appreciate their emphasis on creating dialogue between different community actors stemming from elementary school admin and educators, working towards parents, and ultimately leading to community organizations and media outlets to have their voices be amplified. Teachers were educating themselves about the current issues of reforming their commitment to ensure social equity and justice for their students. They were tired of seeing the system fail them and decided to finally be heard. This section speaks to me from a community development perspective and how local actors played a part in creating change. The power is within the community and its people. It is within the students to stimulate actions for their peers and adults around them and create the change they want to see. Students are the literal future and are being able to foster a learning mindset, modeling to them that you're always learning and it's always an opportunity to learn and help incorporate those social issues to the curriculum is important because it is always relevant. The third section that was written by Natalie Labossiere, Where Do I Belong? A Black Teacher's Dilemma, is a section where she discusses a conflicting situation of whether to have a conversation with a student individually or as a class. Her argument builds upon previous themes mentioning being a model for students and addressing different situations they face. She ultimately realized that there are moments where she is a teacher for only one person, a person who she represents, a person who she is a role model for, and the need to guide them and teach them to navigate the social world. I appreciate her argument here because I have felt that being an educator means having to focus on everyone at the same time and ensure that they learn from the same things and experiences. However, I need to step back and remember that everyone is learning differently, everyone faces unique struggles, and I need to address those challenges in a way that grants success and confidence for the student. I share the same sentiment with her that I don't want to see students feel like my classroom is just another class that will make them feel invisible. Sometimes they just need a teacher to see them for who they are and what makes them unique. Once I have finished these readings, I understand the importance of integrating contemporary issues into the lessons of the day. The social world itself is a learning opportunity to understand how to navigate the world. If they are not, every person and group are confronted with social issues and need to learn from their own community members. If they are not addressed properly, this can lead to endangering the safety of the student and their lives. Some of these students need less guidance from their teachers because they have these privileges, they have different opportunities, and they are perceived differently based on their race. On the other hand, some of these students face more injustices, are perceived more negatively, have social bias against them rooted in history, and causes them to feel silenced, invalidated, unheard, and invisible. Being able to bring relevant and contemporary events into the classroom is important to me because it gives a sliver of hope to these students. It makes them realize that other people are also watching and that they can share their voice, be amplified, and most importantly, be seen. The ignorance of saying that you don't see color or race translates to not recognizing the historical discrimination and injustices that students are experiencing in their everyday. The social movement that was described by Au and Hagopian in their section is a concrete example of how addressing social injustices provides an opportunity for students to be validated and heard by their community, and also create a new support system for their success. The beginning of the section talks about meaningful conversations that the elementary school administration and staff had to become activists for their students. This creation of dialogue cultivates the opportunity to bring people together, stand up for the issues they see every day. They demonstrate the ability to stand against this institutionalized racism in their community and ultimately provide an outlet of being heard. While reading the sections, it made me further solidify the importance of listening to my students and seeing what they are experiencing, how their lives are an opportunity to develop new skills and knowledge, and implementing it to their learning to make their education valuable to them. Learning academic material that makes a student feel validated and giving them the autonomy to choose their own education is what makes them feel also seen. However, when it comes to the topic of race within school context, I am happy to see the progress in incorporating more multicultural practices in schools. From my personal experience in school to my professional experience, I can see more comfortableness from my students in discussing current issues that affect them. They are not scared to talk about the impacts that being a certain race leaves in their lives, and they are open to learning and incorporating that information to their experiences. There is always an opportunity to improve and have to be at a national impact rather than a local impact, so that all students feel as validated and as comfortable as the students I work with. During this whole section, I was reflecting back on my time in middle school and how I interacted with my peers. This was a time period where I went to a primarily white dominant school, so black and brown students tended to form a community within each other. Their interactions were more normal and natural to me rather than my other peers who always seemed more restrictive when talking. During eighth grade, we began reading the book How to Kill a Mockingbird, and my teacher mentioned that the language that was used in that book made my white peers feel uncomfortable. She didn't go much into detail about the vocabulary used, but she told me that we can skip the N word because it was an uncomfortable word. I was confused because this was one of the words or variation of the word that my black and brown peers used often. I know there's also discussion about brown students using that word, but at the time I was unaware of this and just confused. Why wasn't it uncomfortable for my other peers? What meaning did it hold, historically, that made it feel so tabooed? It wasn't until I asked one of my black peers and learned from them about this word, its historical roots, and why it's used now, that I realized its significance. And honestly, I was not uncomfortable, as this was not a word that I felt an association with or should be using. I understood its meaning and its significance that it has created for this community and the value it provides when it's used. I realized the power that word holds with that can cause discomfort to the majority race because it challenges their notes of power. And I wonder, did my teacher present this correctly? Would it have been more beneficial to provide us with a more historical context to evaluate and understand how a community jargon can power communities of color and be validated? As mentioned by the sections read, at the moment, who was she a teacher for? Who was she modeling for? And who was the education for that day? Thank you.